I want to welcome you here. Whether you're tuning in live or watching this later, I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for showing up, not just for this talk, but also for yourself. Because the truth is, we're all navigating a world that feels increasingly unpredictable. Plans change overnight, goals get derailed, and sometimes it feels like no matter how hard we try, the path forward keeps shifting. So if you've ever found yourself asking, what now? How do I move forward when nothing is certain? You're not alone and you're in the right place. So today's session is entitled The Roadmap: Reclaim Direction in Uncertain Times. And it's about more than just staying afloat. It's about learning how to reclaim your sense of agency. What I'm going to say is your sense of mission, even when circumstances are outside of your control, especially when circumstances are outside of your control. I'll be sharing some practical information in my flexible framework I call the roadmap. It's a tool designed to help you not only recover from setbacks, but recalibrate and move forward in mission and move forward with clarity and confidence, even in the messiness of real life. Listen, this isn't about pretending everything's fine. In fact, this came out of my own recognition, my personal recognition that upon looking at social media, watching the headlines, seeing the news posts, I was impacted internally, mentally, emotionally, and I was questioning, what do I do? How do I show up for people? How do I show up for me? How do I show up for my community and my family in a way that is meaningful? And if you're like me, then sometimes you can have a feeling and a sense of powerlessness, of hopelessness, and wonder, what do we do? And you don't want to hear the cliched things. You don't want to hear some of the sometimes the tried and true truths, but we just don't want to hear them in the moment because it seems like it's not working. And so I want to encourage you, as I encourage myself today, that this is really about giving ourselves permission to shift gears, change direction, and still remain aligned with what matters most to us, okay? What matters most to you. So let's take a deep breath. And let's get present. Let's allow this space to be a time of reflection, insight, and maybe even a little bit of hope. I'm hoping for more than just a little bit, but a little bit can get us through this moment. All right. So thanks again for joining us. I want to welcome my friend, John Steele.
Hello.
Hey,
April.
to the conversation.
Yes.
John is the host of, I call it After IV. I heard you say earlier, After 4. Okay.
Yeah,
However you read it is okay.
There you go.
But what it stands for is InterVarsity. And this is a podcast that is helping recent grads navigate life after graduation. Hi, John. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to hang out. This is for myself, and as I pass this along to the recent grads that I get to hang out with, I'm excited to spend some time talking about this with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. And, John is no stranger to the conversation that I have in my head because I've had it out loud with him often. I've been a guest on John's podcast twice now.
Yes.
And the second one is coming out soon, later this month. And we decided to get together and extend that conversation in this moment here. And I'm going to even say we can look at it as an extension or a precursor.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to really add additional meat to the talk that we had earlier that's going to be available to you all later this month. And, I can read your thoughts out there. Some of you might be saying, April, I just heard you say recent grads. I'm deep in my career. I have a family. I'm living abroad. I'm the senior executive. Like, I'm well past graduating. Are you really? Think about that, okay? Are you really? Listen, here's what I'm going to present to you. I think we're all and always experiencing transitions that remind us of the angst, the questions, and the uncertainty of graduating from a program and launching into the real world, okay? We are always launching. We are always pivoting. There's always a transition happening in our lives that they look different, but they have the same core and sometimes the same emotion attached. So, in addition to bringing up some insightful questions, John is going to be a sounding board today for this framework and how we might apply it to various situations. And we are going to really, I personally am going to appreciate some of the push and the testing around the roadmap that John can bring to the table. And those of you who are out there who want to post any questions as well in the chat that we can get to later on. All right. So thank you again, John. Glad to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, let's get into this.
Yes.
So we're going to jump in and really want to first posit a question, get us thinking about why we're here. And that is the roadmap framework. I'm going to share with you guys a little bit in a moment. You're going to get to see some of the details of the framework. But for now, I want you to consider what might be driving your panic right now. What is driving your panic? What may be a challenge that you're facing? And this challenge could be influenced by things that are happening in the world externally, questions that you might have internally about transitions and changes you're experiencing. But let's identify what the panic is. And while you're thinking about that, I think it's important to revisit our title today, which is Reclaim Direction in Uncertain Times. So I want to define uncertain times. John, I'm going to let you go first.
Okay. All right.
And give me, off the top of your head, just what constitutes uncertainty in your
Oh,
mind?
yeah. Well, I mean, it feels exactly like what it sounds like to me is just that I have stepped into a place, and maybe that's the end of what I know that I'm stepping into. It's like, okay, I've made this first yes, but I don't actually know what other possible yeses and nos will come after that I need to engage with. The stepping, whether it's a workplace of saying, okay, I know what my job description said, but what are the things is my boss going to ask me to do that I'm not anticipating? Or I know that I'm stepping into building a family, and I know some of the big pieces of what that looks like, but day to day, what kind of challenges am I going to come across with a small child or a growing child that people can't prepare me for, that's unique to my situation? I mean, those are the things that I think about, and sort of what comes along with that is a certain amount of internal turmoil of maybe trying to plan out possibilities and how would I respond if this is what happens, but not knowing whether or not any of the plans I'm making are actually going to be actionable in the end.
The risk, right, of
Yes.
whether or not these things can be actionable. Let's take a look at this definition. John, can you see that on your
Yes, I
screen?
can. I can.
Uncertain times, you know, marked really by periods when the future feels unpredictable. It's exactly what you said, or even unstable, often marked by social, political, economic, or environmental disruption. And disruption doesn't always carry negative weight, right? Disruptions are just interruptions sometimes to what we have been accustomed to, what we're used to. And so we want to really be able to identify, perhaps for you, those of you who are listening, what's a current disruption, maybe to the way you've been thinking, the way you've been moving, the way that you have been living out your day to day. And is that disruption environmental? Is it economic? Is it political? Is it social? Is it social change? Maybe like John's example in your family. Is it a concern about the future? What is the uneasiness that you're experiencing that may be calling minor or major panic? Okay. Some of us want to avoid that. We're like, oh, I don't panic. I never panic. But the truth is that even when we're trying to suppress and press down, we do get those alarms. We feel anxious at times. And so I want you all to identify that today. And then what we're going to do as you think about that, I want that to remain in the back of your mind as we focus on the next steps, right? Focus on what it means to apply the roadmap. All right. So we asked this question: what is driving the panic? What is one challenge you face? And I want to show you what it looks like to be in a panic loop, because that might be helpful to some of us to see that, to understand what that process might look like. So If we look at this panic loop, phase one is I don't know what I'm doing. And what precedes that might be something we've seen, experienced, something has happened to us, or a decision we've made. And now we're in a position where I don't know what I'm doing. And so we either freeze, we may freeze, or we avoid making the next step, making or taking the next decision. Time passes, and then we panic more. We could even replace phase two with there is some kind of action that is taken, but maybe it's not the right one. Maybe it's an action, but we're just still unsure. Time passes, nothing has changed, and we panic more, right in phase four. So that takes us back into a still being in the same place. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm panicking again. I'm freezing, avoiding, or taking an action that's not clear, that's not rooted in maybe my mission, my calling, and then time passes and it's happening again and again, this loop.
Hmm.
The difference between that and the purpose journey is that clarity and confidence, right, are connected with our action. There's some level of finding the clarity we need to take the action that builds our confidence, okay, as we seek additional clarity to take additional action, right? What happens is our confidence continues to grow. We're having compounding confidence in that scenario. Okay, another way to look at it is I am confident because I know who I am, I know my mission, and so I take action, and that action helps me define more or further what I want and what I don't want. Therefore, I'm getting more clarity. Okay, so we're in this particular scenario, we're starting with maybe a confidence, and the confidence is anchored in knowing our mission and knowing what our calling and knowing what we're called to do. Therefore, we're able to take that action and then get additional clarity that builds our confidence again, right? So now we're having almost compounding clarity. We're building our clarity based on knowing who we are and our mission and being able to take the action steps that we need to. But if we start off with in this purpose journey, we don't have confidence, we're not clear, but we're going to take a step. We're going to start with action. Okay? We're going to start with an action. And that's be really when we go into the framework that I'm going to share with you, that's taking a risk, right? We're taking a risk and we just don't know what to do, but we need to do something, right? Even doing something can be stillness. I need to be still. I need to do my research. I need to learn a little bit. That will either produce greater clarity or greater confidence. And either way, it's helping us to remain rather on a purpose journey instead of a panic loop. So I'm going to show you how to do that using our framework today. And John, you're going to ask me the tough questions. And we're going to
I'll
figure it
do
out
my best.
together. We're going to
That's
figure it
great.
out. We're going to
Yeah.
figure it out together. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right, so let's jump in because I know people are curious about what does this framework look like. So let's take a look. With Landing on Purpose, I'm the founder of Landing on Purpose. My name is April Peters, as you know. And I want you to know that my goal is to help you gain clarity and confidence in decision making. This particular image that you see on your screen right now is the pathway that we use to help people message and mission map so that they can move in action in their mission. I'm only showing this to you because I want you to see where we are in the journey today. When we use the roadmap, we are in this intention setting phase. We're in this phase of setting intention for our next steps and for what we are going to do to then move toward mission. So we're only in the first arc right now. And that's going to be helpful for you later as you think about, hey, do I need to get some help message mapping my life? Do I need some assistance in mission crafting my journey? That which is the latter part of this framework. If that's you and it's a yes, then I'll be here to assist you and help you in that area. Here's the roadmap: 7 actions to ignite your calling. That's what I'm calling it. And these are 7 steps on a road, so to speak, that will help us get from hopefully point A to point B, from point panic to point purpose, right? From uncertain times to being able to reclaim our direction. So we're going to start off with the first step, which is go fish. I'm going to give you a second to like drink in the image first before I move on. Any curiosities, John, as we look at this that come to your mind before we even like, jump into the steps themselves?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, something that stands out to me is that, I mean, step number 1 feels like it feels like action right off the bat, which is what you said. Like, we are taking a step. So there's part of me that's like, boy, what kind of what kind of mental or emotional preparation do I need to make, because I'm going to be taking steps right off the bat here. And that could potentially feel overwhelming, maybe, of like, okay, step 1, act, go
Yeah.
fish. And
Yeah.
so I think that there's some element of that, so that we can take action as opposed to freeze,
Hmm.
as you were comparing in those loops before.
Hmm. No, and I appreciate you saying that because there is mental work. There is a mindset shift, right? That we need to make. And to that end, that is the work of landing on purpose, right? We do focus on where's your head at, right?
Yeah.
Where are you? Where is your head? And that's why it was important for us to ask the question early on: what is driving your panic? What is a challenge you're facing? What is a current disruption, right? Internal that you are experiencing, because it puts, now you're reflective, you're recognizing and identifying what it is. We can't move in anything if we haven't first identified the need. And that's really what Go Fish is about. I don't want it to be intimidating because there is, even stillness is action,
Hmm.
not stagnant,
Yes.
not being stagnated, but stillness. Stillness and stagnation are two different things.
Hmm.
But even stillness can be an action, meaning stillness and waiting to understand, to learn, to figure out something before we move. That, even that is an action. It's not laziness. That's not avoidant. If your focus is doing the research you need to do before you take the next step. And that's really what Go Fish is about. I'm going to
Hmm.
break it down. Let's open that up real quick and break it down. Go fish. So we're not waiting to be fed, right? We are getting informed. We're identifying first the problem. Let's get informed about it. And then let's do our research. Let's ask the right questions. Let's get curious. Let's get curious. Curious as a driver. Curiosity and being, wanting to understand and learn more is a driver for us and helps us act based on information. So go fish, don't wait to be fed. So if you're dealing with, I'll say this, I'm a new mom. I'm a new mom. And I had to
Boy.
go fish. I had to get informed. Okay.
Yes.
And I remember this guy was at a cafe and he just looked like he had it together. He had his baby in the stroller. He had that nice leather pouch hanging off the stroller, everything organized. And I was like, okay. And to go and get his coffee, and so I asked him, how's it going? How old is your son? And he told me about an app that would really help you manage your understanding of the ages and stages of development of your child, right?
Mhm.
I was getting informed, right? Now the problem for me was I didn't even know that app existed. I had the paper version, I had the books, but knowing that there was something that could be at my fingertips that would help me process through being a new mom, understanding what is going on, sleep patterns, foods, all those things was really helpful, right? And taking the risk to ask the question, to talk to people, to be curious. I'm curious. So
Hmm.
I'll see something interesting and I want to know, how was that for you? How did you do that? How did you come about that response or that answer or that success point, that achievement? And in this case, this guy is like, "Oh yeah, this is what I did. And this is what we're dealing with." And he was sharing with me just some of the things that him and his wife were experiencing. And so I want you to make curiosity contagious. I think at a stage when we are, especially when we think we know everything about something, it's so important for us to build our curiosity contagion. It's so
Hmm.
important to do that. I'm gonna put something out there that's gonna be it might be shocking for some. So let me just caveat that. It might be hard to hear. But several months ago, maybe a few months ago, I was in the supermarket with my son. It was about 1:32 p.m. and I'm going to the aisle to not the aisle, but the freezer, section with all like the bacon and all that stuff. And as I'm walking back to the back of the store with him in the cart, I see a man with a leather jacket on with a swastika on the back. Huge swastika on the back of the jacket. And first of all, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, bright as day, and the market is bright. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, what am I seeing? Could it be that I'm actually seeing something different than what I think I'm seeing? Because I'm thinking about the the symbol in reverse that is traced back to Native American culture. It has nothing to do with what we know it as, right? So I was like, I'd done some studies of that. So I was like, let me not assume that what I'm seeing is what I'm seeing. But as I got closer, inside, you can't deny inside what you are observing. And I remember every time that in my mind, I'm like, I want to go and talk to him. I want to go and talk to him. And every time that I had that in my head, I'm kind of pushing the cart and my son reaches up, puts his hands up to me and pulls me down. And he did it about 2 or 3 times and then I realized, "Wait a minute, God, are you giving me a sign that I need to chill? I need to relax. I need to wait."
Hmm.
Because one, I'm not by myself, right? I'm here protecting, right, my son, and I'm watching
Hmm.
over him, and I have to be mindful of the kinds of conversations that I get involved in, right? Make a long story short, I did approach him. I did approach the man, and I asked him, "What's that on your jacket? What does that mean?" And so curiosity, I guess, was guiding me, but also a desire to. And everybody's not with this. I know everybody's not with this, but I just had a desire and I've been feeling personally that my call is bridge. My call
Hmm.
is conversation. My call is I just have a unique call. It's not everybody's. But I went to him and I asked him the question and he paused and I think he was very surprised. And he started to go into the origin, the origin of it, 1940, just talking about Germany and talking about Nazi Germany and what it means. And that he said, I can't put flower patches on my jacket. And I said, why not? And he just looked at me and basically said it's meant to scare people. He mentioned that. Well, that you're being successful in that, in that journey. It's
Yeah.
meant to scare people. What revelation I received in that conversation was that, first of all, he's an older man. He had been in a motorcycle gang. It's a motorcycle gang. He'd been in this motorcycle gang probably for many, 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 many years. It was an old leather
Hmm.
jacket. And I thought about what are the things that cause people to join a gang? What are some of the insecurities? What are some of the needs that cause people to sign up for something, whether or not they agree with it all, right? That make them feel powerful, that make them feel like they have meaning, that make them feel like they matter. And something in this particular person, I'm not saying this goes for everybody, but in this particular person, I just got a sense that what he had signed up for and ascribed to was not really what he thought, or was not
Hmm.
really what he had believed. Or any, I don't even know if he continued to believe it, but sometimes signing up to be a part of something in a group, you just develop group think, right? And you carry on. And the reason why I thought about that is because it was funny, because right after he walked away, my son started singing Kendrick Lamar, a part of a Kendrick Lamar song, and I'm like, the timing of that was perfect. But anyway, he wasn't even, was he 2 yet? I don't think he was even 2 yet. But anyway,
Wow.
he walked away, and then we went in the aisle, and my son started singing this beautiful melody that he made up, just a real pretty melody. He was singing in the aisle, and the gentleman came down the aisle, and he's like, "Oh, wow, he sings? He sings too?" He just had a very warm, calming,
Hmm.
affect and engaging me and engaging him. And I said, "Yeah," and we just went on our separate ways. But I had said to the gentleman earlier, I said, "Thank you for engaging us. I wasn't coming to you to create a stir. Like I wasn't trying to have an argument. I really wanted to talk. I really wanted to know." And I waited for everybody in my area to move out of the way, because wasn't trying to create a scene, but I wanted there to be a space for me to ask the question. And so we can identify a problem, we can get informed, we can ask questions, we can get curious, and we might not like the answers. We might not like the answers, but I really believe that encounter, there was something that happened. Something happened. A seed was sown. And that's what matters most. And in these uncertain times, I know there are certain people who are called to that thing. They're called to have those kinds of encounters. That takes us to really, this next one of risking to respond. John, what do you have? I know you have something on your mind you want to say.
Yeah. Well, I'll say now having asked the original question that I asked about taking a step immediately can feel sort of overwhelming at times, or maybe feel a little risky, to know that even, like you said, pausing, being curious, and spending some time evaluating and learning can be that very first step of go fish. Then makes it feel like something like a step that's labeled risk at the very beginning. Maybe it some of the risky sense that we might have of like, okay, I've done my research. Now it's easy for me to get stuck. For me personally, it's easy for me to, I love to research, to learn, to map out. This is, if I were to take action, this is how I would do it. And then when the time comes to take action, to be like, maybe I need to research a little bit more. And to say,
Yeah,
like, part of the
yeah.
process is taking a step of risk. Like, okay, so what is this next part of, I've done the research, and now what's my next step in response to having a little bit more of my curiosities answered?
Yeah, you're not alone in that. We can all get, that's the other thing that recent grads or close to be grads
Yes.
experience. I know there's a university that I was looking to do some work with, and one of the directors was communicating that, a problem they were facing was the failure to launch.
Mm,
Students who were looking for ways to stay on campus and not graduate.
yes.
They were like, what additional classes can I take? Because they were accustomed to the loop, right, of the academic year,
Yes.
summer, academic year. And it's almost like you're in the middle where you're living life, quote unquote, in the real world, but not yet fully in the
Mm,
real world for most of them. And so the fear of launching and going out and taking the risk, now we've got to take all those learnings, everything you just developed and everything you just studied, and actually go and do.
yes.
And so they were looping back. It's like, how can I stay on campus? What other clubs and organizations can I participate in?
Yes.
And so, yeah, so it's easy to stay in the research loop and the learning loop and not take the risk to actually do something.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's what this is really about. It's taking action despite the risk and despite the risk of rejection,
Yes.
facing that rejection, determining to step forward based on the information. You have the information. Now it's time to step forward and actually do something with it. My background, John, is also an entrepreneurial training. And so years ago, what I used to do in the city of Newark is host these, what we called lean startup events where people would come in 48 hours, start with idea, solution, and then launch, right?
Hmm.
And that included hopefully getting angel investment into their idea. And so they didn't have time to just remain in the learning loop. They actually, or the panic loop, they actually
Right.
had to take the risk right away. I think it was day one. They're talking to potential customers. They're testing and what we call idea validation. They're validating the idea first and then saying, okay, the idea is now either invalidated or validated. Here's what I need you to do to pivot, or here's what I need to do to begin the launch and see if this can be a moneymaker. Is this going to drive forward the solution that I think it will? We call that the hypothesis stage, right? And then the testing stage. And so I think this is what we need to bring into our lives. Are
Yes.
you getting the information you need? Are you doing the research you need to do about the problem that you're trying to address, the situation you're trying to address? And then are you developing a hypothesis on which you can now launch the test? That's what
Yeah.
this is, the testing phase.
This reminds me of the phrase "done is better than perfect." The rejection tolerance. It's one of those of like, take a step. It might not go perfectly. That's okay. It doesn't mean that you messed this up. Like the win is that you took a step. Don't base it
The
on whether or
win.
not you like got an A plus in the response. The win is that you took a risk. And that's amazing. Keep developing that thick skin of like, I've done my research based on what I know. I'm going to take a step and respond.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't go right, okay, I'll reevaluate, see what I can learn, and I will take another step and try again. And
Yeah.
being able to handle rejection without it saying like, oh, well, I'm just on the wrong path altogether, or there's something deficient about me as a human. It's like, no, 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 no. Rejection is part of the process. Just keep taking steps, keep evaluating.
Rejection can be a beautiful gift. I know there's an author, I don't remember her name right now, but you can check out her book. But she talks about all the ways that rejection saved her
Hmm.
life in many
Wow.
cases. And so I really believe that for us, we got to be tolerant to be able to accept the rejection, recognize that rejection is actually a pivot reminder. It reminds us not to just be sitting and like, oh, I give up, but rather, wait a minute, there could be a pivot here, or there could be a minor adjustment, right? Sometimes it's not the action, it's not something we need to change in our action. Sometimes it's timing.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's timing. I was just talking to an author the other day who wrote a book and released it and put it out there to, I guess, different publishers was, trying to get it picked up. And she got so many rejections. And finally, she just kind of left it alone. And I said to her, you know what I think, because she's a prolific writer. I said, you know what I think? I think that sometimes the project for you or the project for us is to get the thing out, to birth whatever it is that's in us, get it out, whether it's a book, maybe it's an invention, get it out of your system. We too often attach outcome to what we're creating and what we're developing. We immediately think it's got to be this outcome. Once I put it out, this is what I want to see happen with it. It's okay to have a vision, but when you're too attached to the outcome, you don't keep in mind timing. You don't consider that maybe if you just release this project, the reason why you needed to get this one out of your system is because there's a second one
Hmm.
behind it that needs to be completed that will actually be the path creator for the first.
Hmm.
Often we're thinking the first, whatever we did in order is going to go out in order. And I know that there are authors who've written several books, and it doesn't mean their first book was the first book out. It might have been the third. And then the third gave way to the first. It opened the door. People were able to now, oh, this writer wrote this book before this. This is amazing. They're able to receive the prolific nature of the writer, the way that writer was thinking. I think about Octavia Butler and her writing and just how, her sci-fi and just how well, I'm sure beyond what at the time, what people were writing at the time, how she was probably blowing minds, right?
Hmm.
We too often associate what we're creating with an outcome. And what we need to do is take the risk, accept the rejection, not as a no all the time, not as a no finally, but maybe it's a no in timing. Maybe it's a no
Hmm.
in season. Maybe it's a shift in steps. Maybe it's, like you said, building our tough skin to help us develop greater confidence to keep going, not shut us down, not shut us down. And what you said actually brings us to this third one, which is execute, evaluate, and explain your steps. I think we need to do two. We need to take the risk in order to test what happened, to evaluate what happened in our validation phase. Whether we're validating an idea, a thought, a solution that we want to bring to the table, that we want to bring to the world. Now we need to sit and evaluate. How did that go? First, we execute on our research. We evaluate and explain the hypothesis. And then we execute on what we propose as our solution. And we evaluate and explain the steps and the why behind them. Right? I think that's so important. When I think about recent grads, right? They've done the research. Now it's time to execute. Then now what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What is it that you want to? I remember a student from Rutgers University I was working with in one of my cohorts, and she decided to marry two different parts of herself, put them together to really create something that the marketplace had never seen. She wanted to go into public policy, but the way that she was going to use some of her gifts in public policy, going to create stories and help people see real issues from a different angle and different perspective, because she was bringing a talent and gift that she had to the table, right? So she got there because she began to evaluate who she was and think about her ideas, all her creative ideas, and see, wait, there's room for me to bring that into the career that I'm pursuing,
Hmm.
right? That could be the pivot.
Yeah, April, as I'm reading through this, I'm wondering about the why. Like who is what comes up for me as I see why. Who is
Okay.
the why for? When you talk about evaluating and explaining your steps, is this for my own internal, like, okay, I've got these things in order, I'm understanding why, or is it so I can explain it to somebody else? Like, where does the why live and who is it for?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I think
Okay.
that's an excellent question, but I wrote that as both because I'm thinking of as someone who used to be a classroom teacher and wanting our students to be able to not just get the problem solved, but tell me how you got there. I know that's the
Yes.
one thing that students hate. I don't want to write the proof, you know? But that's really what it is. It's the proof. What's the
Hmm.
proof? The
Yeah.
proof, right? What's the pudding? What's the proof? I want to see that. I want to know what that is. It's not just like you said, it's not external, but I need to know what it is for me. I need to know
Right.
because that's building up my confidence, not only my critical thinking skills, but my confident problem solving skill, that whenever I'm coming into a new phase, a new issue, a new concern, a new dynamic, I'm confident in my ability to not only critically think through it, problem solve it, but explain
Hmm.
the why.
Yeah. Because if I got something right by accident, that doesn't really help me next time. Hey, it's helpful to go back and review and say
Talk
like,
it.
oh yeah,
That's
this
right.
is this is how I got to a really positive outcome. And so, okay, I want to write that down and understand why I got here and why this worked or why it didn't. But yes, like
Mhm.
the understanding why
So
so
glad
I
you
can
said that.
rinse and repeat or so I can take a different route next time.
Take a different
Whichever is
route.
yeah.
With landing on purpose, this step is reflective of the storytelling phase,
Hmm.
right? I need to be able to tell the story of my
Yeah.
then and my now
Yeah.
in a way that points to my mission, which is the why.
Hmm.
And then what does that do? That tells me now, that reminds me to act, to take actions that are in correlation with my mission, that are in
Yeah.
correlation. So that when somebody says, "Well, why did you do that? Why did you choose that? Why did you go over there?" Not that you need to answer all their questions, but if you do want to do that, you can say, because my mission is. dot, 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 dot.
Yeah.
Right? Very clearly. And that's what landing on purpose helps you develop your single sentence mission statement, not out of thin air, but based on the past and patterns of your life and where you want to go. Right.
Hmm.
So this mirrors that step. If you are trying to navigate uncertain times, you're trying to reclaim direction, and you're thinking about, I want to make a move in this left or right, then being able to explain or first evaluate what happened before, where was I, right? Explain the idea that I have, be able to clearly articulate that and how it connects to my values, and then move on that solution.
Hmm.
And when somebody says, well, not to say their solution will work, right? But be able to move on it and then communicate the why behind it so that you can determine what's a better next step. What's
Right.
something I do need to adjust, right? You're armed, you're empowered to do that, and you move away from being stagnant.
Yes, and it keeps you from mission creep as well. If you can explain why this is in alignment with your values and the things that you like, I'm purposefully moving in this direction. So when I can explain why, and I can hold that up to what it is that I'm meant to be doing in my life, then that's just a
Mhm.
good evaluation for like, oh, wait a second. The reason why I did this actually doesn't align with my values or with my mission. And so I need to adjust and
Mhm.
make some of those tweaks. So I appreciate that even just for self-checking. Am I still in alignment?
Yeah. Am I still in alignment? Because first of all, let me not pass through that so fast. Like you said, mission creep. I've never heard that
Oh, okay.
before. I love that. I love that. I'm adding that to my lexicon.
There you go.
No, so that's good because we want to do that pre and post. Notice that the execution on the research, you could be checking in with your values and checking in with your mission at that point. And then once you've developed a solution or a move or an action point that you want to take, now you're executing and evaluating that. Right? That's what we do in our science experiments. We do the same
Right.
thing. It's the same step. Yes, school did matter, guys.
Did, believe it or not.
We can apply it to our lives. So yeah,
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's what that is. All right, so let's move on to phase 4. There's so much more that we can say about this. This
Absolutely.
is just we're just scratching the surface.
Yes.
But creating resources to benefit others is phase 4. And I like this one because I feel like this is a very vivid way to, for lack of a better phrase, make a difference.
Yeah.
We can really bring something to the table. I mentioned mining your gifts and
Hmm.
interests and talents. Like, who do you know what they are? I remember a student asked me, a soon to be grad asked me, you know, a question about creativity or being creative. And a lot of people will say to me, I'm not creative. I'm not creative because they associate it with, the arts, for example. And I said, if you are a techie, if you're somebody that everybody comes to fix or adjust something and you know the answer and it's nothing to you, that's a gift. That's a
Hmm.
talent, right? How can you mine some of the gifts and interests and talents that you have and translate them into shareable information?
Yeah.
How can you take what you take for granted? Let's say that. How can you take what you take for granted and make it shareable, make it collaborative, make it a contribution? Shout out to my cousin who's an amazing cook, an amazing baker, and built her catering business because people were asking her for cake all the time. She's like, okay, let me just, you know, and we take it for granted. She's just good at it, right? But she was able to translate that into something she could give, contribute, or turn into a business. We need to think about what resources do we have at our disposal that can benefit others.
Yeah, and this feels like one of the hidden benefits of this whole process that I try to remind new grads of, like, don't forget this isn't just for you, because as you kind of make your way through this process, just like you have gathered information and expertise and advice from people that you know, this now postures you to be able to, like, if you're getting adjusted to a new job, what does it look like to sort of figure out your employer and how to engage with them well, how to actually do the down deep work of the projects that you're asked to do. You are postured really nicely for when the next person gets hired, that you can be this like welcome wagon kind of person and say, let me not just be a kind face that's smiling to you as you walk into the building, but can I just like can we sit down and have a lunch meeting together? And I'm gonna get you up to speed on the things that I've been learning over these last couple of months or years being here. And then you can be an
Mhm.
advocate for somebody else. You can take the skills that you've known and you can resource them so that they can get a leg up faster than you did, maybe. And it's just an
Absolutely.
opportunity to serve other people really well.
Absolutely, John. Absolutely. It's a serving. And for those, and for all of us who are really dealing with depression, feeling depressed by what we see, oppressed by what we view and what's happening around us. This is a really great way to boost our energy levels when we start thinking about how we can serve others. How
Yes.
can we give? How can we be a resource? And I'm not talking about in ways that deplete you, but in for me, I know that there are some areas that are just natural to me, that when I'm operating in that, time goes by so fast,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So quickly. Not to mention, let's look at the wisdom of our experiences that we can share with people, just as you said, John, whether it's in the workplace or in our volunteer experiences. There's an organization that really helps people manage through deep grief. And a
Hmm.
friend of mine started working with them, and I thought about just how important the stories and the experiences that we have in our own grief can assist somebody else through theirs. The stories and experiences that we have navigating the corporate ladder, or experiences with people, just the human capital, right? That can help people navigate and do better maybe than what we did. And becoming a collaborative contributor in the environment is not always about starting a fresh new thing. Sometimes it's joining something that already exists. Think those efforts be more effective because you're linking right strengths, you're linking arms, you're bringing in a strength that is not present right there, that can help that effort, that organization grow and be more impactful. So these can be, yes, it's not always about us, it's not about always about what it can do for me, but naturally it does boost our energy levels. It stimulates in us a joy because we're collaborating, we're giving of ourselves in a way that is organic to ourselves, right? I'm
Hmm.
not talking about if you don't like to bring homemade dishes to somebody in their house when they're going through a hard time, don't cook now. You know what I mean? Like, just don't do it. If that's not something I'm just being, because sometimes we can try to mirror what other people do to give and to benefit others. That is not organic to who we are. Find what's organic. Find your gifts, your interests, your talents, and don't feel that they're so small or inconsequential that they can't make a huge difference. Not remember there's significance in the small. So
Hmm.
do not diminish yourself. Do not diminish the beauty of what you have to offer because it doesn't look like what somebody else is offering. Okay. That's what I say.
I
Let's
love
go
that.
to 5. So this really is very much connected. Seeking ways to improve the environment, right? And I think I look at the environment is always a space of learning and growing and developing, right? So, how am I improving the environment
Hmm.
in which I am growing, learning, becoming by modeling an attitude that enhances joy and curiosity, by participating and offering help? This is reflective of phase 4, right? Of that previous step. Creating resources to benefit others, right, is a way of offering help. How can I participate more? How can I participate in life more? How can I participate in my community more, right? And I say that, and I say that very, very carefully, because I know there's, we talk a lot about burnout. We talk a lot about those things, but I'm really specifically not talking about you doing more in a way that depletes you,
Right.
but how can you participate in life in ways that enhance joy and curiosity for yourself and for the others around you? How are you modeling that? And that can shift the landscape. We talked about a difficult conversation that I had several minutes ago at the supermarket, but I'm always having conversations with people who are not aligned with the way that I think. They're not, right? But guess what? We still have fun. We still enjoy each other, even when we disagree on certain other matters. But what I find is that my voice matters, my perspective matters. And right now, we're in a season where people are taking things off of the table, taking themselves from the table because they're tired and they're exhausted and they're done. But guess what? There's a way and a call that you have to improve your space, your area of influence, and your environment by the way that you show up in it.
Hmm.
And you don't get to walk away from this. You can walk away from the table for a moment, but you got to come back because you are needed.
Hmm.
You are needed. And so I want to encourage us to not look at external things as there's a great analogy about temperature taking and thermostats and all that. I don't even know how to even go about saying that. So I'm just going to say that pour hot water, right? Be the sunshine.
Hmm.
You change the temperature. Don't worry about the weather report. Don't worry about the weather report. I'm gonna tell you, I went to Martha's Vineyard and the weather was in the 70s, and I'm like, "Ooh, it's gonna be cool," because if that's the high, then what's gonna be the low at night? So I'm trying to make sure I bring my sweatshirt and my sweaters and all that, and my pants, and even though I'm near the water, but listen, 70s in Martha's Vineyard is not 70s on the East Coast, not like 70s just being away from the war. It's actually warmer than you
Hmm.
think. So let's not look at the temperature and make determinations immediately about how we're going to feel when we get in the room, when we get in the space. Let's not assume, because guess what? We're going to new geography. We're going to
Hmm.
new environments. We could be closer to the equator or further away. Let's not make assumptions, but rather let us carry the warmth of who we are, right? Let us come in and cool down the situation that if it needs to be cooled down by skill building our own generosity.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that, and the thought of leaning into a place that you are excited, that is part of your skill set, the things that like naturally ignites joy in your own life. And it seems to me like a place here where as you're experiencing these kinds of things, like, oh man, I'm finding a lot of joy and refreshment in this. It seems to me that this could be a place to introduce the idea of strategic retreat, and to say like these are
Mhm.
places where you can go hard because it's so fun and exciting, and you don't really recognize that even that you're just getting like physically tired in the midst of doing these kinds of things, and where you may have to tell yourself, like you said, like you can step away for a while, but you're going to come back. You're going to come back to it. Are there places even to
Absolutely.
strategically say, this time next week, I'm thinking ahead. I'm going to pull back so that I can have a moment to reflect, to refresh,
Mhm.
to,
Mhm.
to sort of take stock of the things that have happened, and then to be able to step back in fully ready to engage instead of going 110% because I love this and it's super exciting, until I find out, holy cow, I'm running on fumes because I just haven't rested appropriately. And finding some of that appropriate balance of rest, even in the midst of doing things that we really love and enjoy.
Absolutely. I like that. I love that you are bringing up retreat and rest and peace, right? And really being still. I was talking to someone recently who is dealing with grief right now and is in a moment of stillness for several months. And they're not used to that. They're not used to, they're used to doing,
Yeah.
And I just reinforced for them, no, rest, because the answers are coming through that time.
Yeah.
Your solutions, there are a few projects they want to attack, but they just don't feel like they should be doing them right now. And too often we fight that feeling because we are so caught up in comparing our journeys, or we're concerned that we're losing time. And if we don't get out there and do it now, and what is motivating and moving us is angst as opposed to rest. And I don't believe in that. I don't
Hmm.
believe that. I believe that anytime I'm having a feeling or a desire to move in a particular way, and the motivation or the foundation of that action is fear, anxiety, angst, or overwhelm, I don't make a move.
Yeah.
I have to either reframe the reason for the action, or I need to wait until what is motivating me is rest, is peace, is confidence and understanding that this is the right journey, and that I'm leaving the outcome and the results right to God. I'm not getting caught up in what that outcome is. I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part.
Yeah.
And I was sharing with this person that when we are surrendering time and our agenda in that particular way, we're not moving with anxiety. A day is like a week, and an hour is like a
Yeah.
day, meaning there's an expansion of efficiency and
Hmm.
effectiveness because we've rested, because we've taken the time to fish. Fishing is the most relaxing. Think about step number one, right? Fishing, we talk
Yes.
about research, but it's resting and research. I'm going to actually add that to the framework, rest and research,
There
because
you
it
go.
is one of the most relaxing activities that we can
Hmm.
do, right? Not everybody does it. I'm not a fisher either, but the idea behind it is that what is it that I do that brings me a sense of rest and peace and reflection,
Hmm.
where I can hear myself, I can hear what God is telling me, to do next. So that rest, it feeds our imagination. It feeds our ability to imagine big and heighten the level of our response to ourselves and to the world
Hmm.
by thinking long term, not just in the moment, not just what's going to get me where I need to go in this moment, but also thinking about long term impact, having long term vision, and being strategic, even in restraint. You said rest and earlier, but there's also such a thing as strategic restraint.
Hmm.
Strategic retreat, which I like, and the strategic restraint. Because there's times that we want to respond and we're not responding in rest. We're not responding in rest. We're coming
Yeah.
out of ourselves and we're saying and doing things that are motivated by fear, anxiety, anger. Um, we haven't taken the time to let me hold on for a moment. Let me restrain so that I can make sure I'm thinking long term in my response, not just the moment, not just what's happening in the moment right now. So we want to think about how that influences our present day choices. How does imagining big influence our present day choices?
Yeah, can I just check my hearing here, April, and just make
Please.
sure it sounds to me like you're saying there's sort of a line that we walk of like imagine big, dream big, like what could be, but at the same time that is held in tension with reality, with possibility, like that there's a certain sort of like both of those things holding each other in place of like I'm gonna think bigger than maybe what I have been, but at the same time I'm using restraint to say like what is big but also realistic. Like what's a challenging stretch goal for me as opposed to something that's just like, well, if I could just make this outlandish thing happen, then I would never have to fill in the blank again. Am I right in hearing that there is a tension of holding those together, of dreaming big and sort of holding back to some degree? Or am I help me with that?
I don't think my answer is not a no.
Okay.
I think my answer is a yes and. So
Okay.
I'm not thinking about the caps on your dream or your imagination as much as I'm thinking about how we respond.
Okay.
So
Okay.
how are we responding to what's in front of us? I'll give you an example. This is outrageous and outlandish, but it's happened.
Okay.
I'm married, and I say to my husband, honey, I want to go live in, name a country, Madagascar. I am imagining big. This is what I would love to do. Let's pack up tomorrow. Let's go. Let's go. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Like it's it.
Okay.
Right? That is imagining big, but am I thinking long term? Am I exercising
Mm,
strategic restraint to plan and figure out how can we make the dream happen? Is the dream, and mind you, not just the dream hanging in the balance, but is the dream connected to my mission? Because
yeah.
that's what my husband's going to turn around
Okay.
and say, how does this connect to the mission?
Yeah.
How does this connect to the why? He did it. I remember he did it years ago. Cause I was like, I want to live abroad and I want to, and he's like, yeah. And how does that connect to, and it was a good question. I
Hmm.
didn't have the answer at the time. I do now, but I didn't have the
Yeah,
answer at the
yeah.
time. And so that's what I mean by strategic restraint.
Okay.
Strategic restraint, also, another example of it is I want to see, I'm sick of what's happening in the world. I'm sick of the factions and the polarizations. I'm sick of the anger. I'm sick of the words and the spitefulness. I'm sick of the meanness. I'm sick of the racism. I'm sick of the classism. I'm sick of um, the least of these are torn down into
Mm,
pieces and trampled over. Right? That's my passion and I'm upset about it, right? But my strategic restraint is, do I go and cuss everybody out that's doing that? No. Some of y'all are going to say yes. Some of y'all watch it. No. No. Now if you catch me slipping, forgive me, but I'm saying
mm,
that it's important that we also think through the long term. What is the long, because that me cussing everybody out that's doing it is not actually impacting and affecting change. Is getting something just off my chest.
hmm.
Me
Yes.
is not impacting real change. I might get a couple people sparked, but it's like a fizzled moment. It's like what gossip does. Gossip in the moment can it's like tasty morsels, right? You like, I'm getting some information on somebody that I didn't really care for in the first place. And so it feels like it's feeding you, but it's actually depleting you. It's destroying you. It's tearing you down because it doesn't last, right? It's not something that's nutritious. It's not actually building you up or the other person, but it's actually sowing seeds of discord, more discord. So if I'm exercising strategic restraint, then I'm thinking about, hey, my desire to see something different is great. It's righteous. It's a righteous desire. It's a righteous anger. It's a righteous passion. But how I do that? How do I engage that? How do I engage that? How do I engage that with my hand in a way that demonstrates I have long-term vision for
Yeah.
change?
Yeah.
Long-term, meaning I have not cut somebody down that was actually supposed to be a person I helped, that I have not destroyed someone or something or some place that's actually meant to be built up. Right? That's what I
Yes.
mean by strategic restraint. We can't even get into that. That's just like, that's a whole another level. Go ahead.
No, that's great. That's super helpful. That the strategic restraint does not tamp down your big imagination. What it does is actually set you up to be able to accomplish it at the right pace and in the right ways.
Yeah, because people will leave their marriages and their families because they had a
Mm,
big vision and a big dream.
right. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
vision, the marriage and the family is part of the vision.
There you go.
And we can get caught up like trying to chase the thing, the big thing. And we're like, that's what I need to do to fulfill myself. And you've left in the wake a big part of the calling that was on a big part. And the restraint that we had to exercise is wait time
Yeah.
or no
Okay.
time. This might not
Yes.
happen in the timing and the way that you think it will, but it can happen. Right. So we do have to think about that restraint. Here's the
That's
last
great.
one. Build a door-to-door plan. Build a door-to-door plan. And this is really about how we enter, how we engage, and how we exit with purpose. I think this is perfect based on what we just talked about. How are we entering in a space? You know, how are we, and I'm thinking that some of our listeners are thinking about how they enter their jobs, their work, their Zooms, whatever they may be. Is it marked with enthusiasm? Reflect on that. Why or why
Hmm.
not? How do you prep before you're even entering into a room? How will you engage the environment once you're there? And then what's your exit plan? And so when I'm thinking about enter, engage, and exit with purpose, I'm thinking in microcosm and macrocosm. I'm thinking
Hmm.
about the specific place that you find yourself right now that may be part of the disruption story, the panic story, right? How are you entering in? How are you engaging and how are you thinking about your exit from that situation, that experience with purpose, right? With mission in mind. And then the macro is the bigger dream, the bigger vision. How are you entering, engaging, and then thinking about, how does this impact all of the responsibilities that I have at home, responsibilities I have in my community and within my family and friendships. So if we're thinking about work, right? How are we balance? I hate that word. How are we entering work, entering the spaces that we're in, the work that we're called to do, and then considering how we plan to, and then when I say exit, I don't mean exit for all time. I mean, that could be, but exiting meaning for the day, right? How am I setting myself up to
Hmm.
always be thinking about where the values are lying, how my values are aligning in my day, both at work and at home and in me. So if I value my family, what's my exit plan from my workspace? Do I have a vision in mind for how I come in, get it done, and get out?
Hmm.
Right? And especially if you work remotely like me and many other people, you've got to have an exit plan because even more so, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in the things that are calling you on your computer and you miss what's calling you at home, right? So what's you take for granted that I can do both. So
Yeah.
what is your planning? How are you engaging? What's your door-to-door plan and your vision for how you engage in all those pieces of your life that are reflective of your true values?
Hmm.
Not what you say you're going to do, but what you really do, what you're really going to do. Like make that come together. And it's especially needed because we need to be nurturing the things that nurture us, especially in uncertain times. We need to be nurturing what nurtures us. We need to be spending more time in our devotional life. For those of you who are believers or Christians, you're spending your time within prayer, nurturing what nurtures you, spending time in conversation in your relationship with God, nurturing what nurtures you, spending time with your family, nurtures you and your friends, because we need to build up ourselves and build up our soul so that we can do the work that we're called to do.
Hmm. Yeah, April, I know we're probably pushing time here, but can I
Yeah.
ask one can I ask one
Yeah, of
quick
course.
question? Because I can read this sort of pre, in the midst, and post. Like, how am I preparing for these to engage with purpose all along the way? And in
Yeah.
my brain, I can tell that it's easy for me to swap purpose with perfection and to say, how can I do this perfectly from start to end? And so can you help me clarify just a little bit, what does it mean to engage with purpose as opposed to having this expectation of I engage perfectly from beginning to end? Do you understand, like, maybe the weight
Yeah.
of this unnecessary expectation of perfection as opposed to doing it with purpose?
That's great. I think it goes back to what I said regarding our mission. When our mission is reflective, our mission should be reflective of our values. Landing on purpose can help you with that, but it should be reflective of your values and then a clear point of action. Like this is whenever I'm making a decision, I can make that decision knowing that it feeds, fuels, funds, fits, and focuses my mission,
Hmm.
right? That's what we want. And then when I say enter, engage, and exit with purpose, I'm walking in every space and every room with mission in mind, my mission
Yeah.
in mind. aware of the other missions that may be in another room, aware of the overall organizational mission, aware of my family's mission, right? Because your personal mission may not be reflective of your mission as a family. But what you want to be doing is thinking, when I'm entering in this space, I'm not trying to be perfect, but I'm carrying with me an arrow pack, so to speak, right? And I'm constantly trying to hit as much as I can. Even if I can't hit the bullseye, I'm getting it on the board. You know what I mean? I'm doing
That's
my
great.
best. I'm
Yeah.
pulling the bow and I'm trying to get it as much as I can to the board, right? Hitting the board. And if I don't, that's okay. Because what I think is great about this framework is that it's a living framework, meaning we're going to cycle back. We're going to be
Yes.
cycling back. We're going to be executing. And if we didn't execute well, we're going to evaluate. We're going to explain why that didn't work.
Yeah.
And then revisit, right? Go fish
That's great.
again. And then create resources and ask questions and be curious. So it's a living framework that helps us not be perfect, but be operating purposefully in whatever we do and however
awesome.
we move and how we show up.
That's great.
Yeah. I'm going to share this. I want to just share with you guys just some quick information and just a quick call to action, really, for you all who are listening as we close, because this is so important. I don't want to leave you hanging. I want you to really reframe your current challenge using the roadmap principles. I want you to think about designing a response strategy that will really help you move in your mission. And if you don't know what your mission is, we can assist you with that. I'm going to show you just a couple of ideas. Set up a vision statement for yourself. Just a vision. What is your desired outcome? What is it that you want to see articulated in word or deed in your life right now? And what is a habit of practice, a routine? Right? It could be a habit of practice or mind. Thanks, John, because you reminded us it's a mindset shift, right, for us that will support and reinforce your vision. So you're going to have vision and the routine to support your vision. An example of that might be a daily reading that you're doing that might be helping you learn or grow or develop, because what we're reading, right, starts to embed in our minds and change our thinking. Or maybe it's a service in a particular interest area that in you acting and moving and serving, it's also changing and developing and growing you up because of who you're connecting with, how you're supporting, making you more aware of needs that you weren't aware of before. And what that will yield is a full adoption, fully formed vision that's fully adopted and has become a regular practice because it's routined and now exists as a well-oiled machine. That's what I want you to begin to do. Flip the vision. And it could be even a vision of how you speak from now on, the way you speak, who you address and how you address them. Maybe you haven't been doing a great job with that. Maybe you're changing or pivoting and transitioning into a new role, and you don't want to carry the baggage that you had before in your old role into your new role and the way that you showed up there and where you're going. Write out a vision statement. Create what is going to be my routine and habit of practice. How am I setting up my door-to-door plan before I even enter that space? What is going to be my habit of mind that supports and reinforces the vision so I can go in and do what I say I believe and do what I say is my mission so that now it becomes fully adopted. That's the challenge for you today. And
Great.
I would love for you to share what that one action is. Send us a message. Here's my contact information. April@landingonpurpose.com. You can go to the website, landingonpurpose.com. I want to know, or you can send me a text and just keep me updated. I'm curious. You already know that. And I want to know how things are going for you. If you want a coaching hour, if you want to sit with me and work through mission, grab the QR code and I'd be happy to assist you and support you in that effort. I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with everybody who has joined us here today. Thank you, John. Any
Absolutely.
parting words as we out?
Man, I mean, I would just encourage people just don't give up. Keep leaning in. Sometimes the way is easy, and sometimes it's just really not. And there's a phrase that I'm familiar with that talks about being led on paths of righteousness, even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. That sometimes the right path still leads through a dark valley. And just because you're in a difficult place doesn't mean you're in the wrong place. So I just encourage you, yes, you need discernment, you need wise counsel to assess whether or not you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
But just because it's hard, don't give up. Use these parts of this framework to help you work through those things and keep moving forward, because there's great things in store for you.
Keep moving forward. Wow. I hope you guys heard all those nuggets that John shared with us today. I'm just giving you a quick peek again at the 7 actions to ignite your calling. Please use it. Let me know how it's working for you. And remember that even though you're going through a valley, you're passing through.
That's right.
You're passing
That's
through.
right.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, John.
Absolutely.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.